haven't seen each other in 35 years. For some of you, that's a long time, but between us, there's about a century and a half of geezer on the stage, so that's hardly anything. Are you coming? Or are you going to make me do this all alone? Okay. So you probably have a plan of what you want to do. And I have a plan to subvert it.
Yeah, fine.
You know,
This is P. Adam Sitney, folks.
this is Bruce Bailllie, and sometimes we get confused. They're applauding that we still know our names.
We both probably come up from a far distant past in some ways of thinking.
Look, we have two films today,
Right.
which have something in common. Bruce Bailllie gives us very often an important clue to what's going on in his films or going on in his mind, but with the titles. And these two titles share something. They are two titles relating to late medieval quest romances. Parsifal was the quest romance of a wonderful and foolish knight, and Quixote was the parody of a quest romance of a foolish knight about a great heart that wanted to be a knight. And there's a kind of identification, I believe, that Bruce Bailllie had with these mad questers. Am I right?
So may we all.
So maybe
In fact, don't we have a kind of a title or subtitle for this event that has to do with heroes and so on?
Yeah, but I mean, these are special heroes. These are funny,
Right.
crazy heroes that we have to love.
Right.
You loved them, no? You want to tell us anything
I
about?
found them
You found
for
them.
myself in my own way, as anyone else might. I suppose you see that. And the love comes, of course. In fact, the Pope, the new Pope, I went to Mass this morning here
Me too.
in town, and also you.
Yeah, I went to Mass.
And the message in my Mass was from Pope Francis. We spoke yesterday momentarily about Saint Francis, but don't let me get divergent.
I'm not going to let you diverge at all.
Yeah, I really
No
bounced up
fucking
and down
way.
yes, the last two days. So anyway, the Pope's message is send the folks love, and there's a couple of things I got to say now as the introduction, and then I'm going to let you.
Okay, say a couple of things.
I'll do as quickly as I
Say
can
them
because
succinctly.
one is an apologia that comes out as quickly as I can make it. It's of a medical nature. I have had a curious ailment for God knows how many years with which I've had to work. And yesterday, the last couple of shows, all the bouncing around, to those of you who were in that audience, is characteristic of a neurological viral scene, which really fundamentally often alters one's thinking and behavior. And so that's an explanation that I felt necessary to make, because some people will come in off the street, so to speak, to an event like this, and they'll go away with an idea that why are they bringing madmen? So, and what kind of madmen? Well,
If only.
Yeah. So, I just want to make that explanation. Let's see, and there was something else. We've been trying to remember for each show as the whole presentation, these three presentations, these three shows, I want to dedicate it to Charles Levine. He's a past local
Filmmaker.
filmmaker, and I have a copy of his DVD somewhere in my archives. The last one was entitled Ones and Twos, and I thought it was quite a wonderful piece of work, short, maybe 3 minutes, something like that.
He wasn't mad, by the way, but we thought he was. You know, this guy had a ridiculous notion about 30 years ago. I mean, we laughed ourselves sick at it, both behind his back and in front of him. He thought that we should advertise films on computers. Put things online. I mean, there was no way on earth anybody was ever going to look at a computer to find out anything. But Levine had this weird visionary notion that, like, the Filmmakers Cooperative should jump in and get online early. We were too smart for that.
Well, yes, and his mom used to save me from the chronic fatigue syndrome every time I hit town with her Jewish chicken soup.
Matzo ball soup.
Matzo ball
soup. You had to have a prescription to make that. Listen, you know, Baillie, I want to take advantage of you because for years I've been showing and lecturing on one film in particular, which is the most glorious 3 minutes in the history of 16mm film. And I want to show it to you, even though it's not regularly scheduled for the program. I want to talk a little bit about it and then expand. It's called All My Life, and just let's run it now, okay?
I first have to.
First, oh, okay.
I'm never going to come back to New York.
Oh, yeah, I've heard you say that before.
I can't take the traffic between the airport and the aerodrome and town anymore, and so I'm.
Yeah, but you'll come back when they teleport you.
I don't know, but I have to introduce my new son that you haven't met, some of you. Keith Baillie, the next Baillie on the down the line, and I call him.
I never met him. Hi, Keith.
Sitney,
Nice to meet you.
famous in our tiny film world. And
You left off the in front of it.
so that's it. And there are two Baillies from the Baillies of Broadway missing. They send their message, their love. That's mom, Lori, and daughter, Wind.
Ah,
Wind is about 27. So that's enough family information.
okay.
And we'll turn it over to the
Now
Adams
let's look at this film and then we'll come back, right back. Why don't
All
we
right.
just step off? And it's a pan.
It's a straight fence.
It's a straight fence.
It's the work of some kind of mad genius.
Tell me about it.
Well, I just buckled the tripod down, and luckily by that time I probably had the money to buy a hydraulic pan head. And the young woman that was standing nearby had my stopwatch that I luckily had with my equipage. And I went, and I'd been in this town, and according to literature here, which is correct, been in town 3 days, and the light was such that I had to come back as I was headed back to San Francisco, and said to her, whoever, a friend that was probably going back to San Francisco or Berkeley, I said, no, I have to go back and shoot that as much. This kind of reflects back on what I said last night about what Kubelka said about handling a camera, which is another sort of subtitle of our programming, about something about the camera in hand or whatever. What do we do about having the camera? And then I told him when he was at Bard, and the young man said, my gosh, it must be nice to carry a camera around all the time. And he said, on the contrary. He said, so we know about that other side from last night. We were all here, and we.
So if it was a straight fence, what keeps it from arcing then?
I haven't the foggiest. I never noticed. I never noticed an arcing. But this fence was a final remnant of the lumber company up in Northern California, and it owned the town. And all my friends lived there. Casper, I guess it's called. And the rose bush, God love us, as the expression goes, had to settle on that old fence. And beneath the fence was a wooden sewage drain, that what was left of it, pipes maybe this big, and what was left of them, some in halves and so on, and they paralleled the fence. And so we stood right in the middle, and it was timed, and I said, this is a roll of film lasts approximately 3 minutes, tell me when we're at 2.5 or something. And so we just went down the line.
And were you listening to the music as you were filming?
Well, yes, actually, the music, I heard it every day of my visit with my old friend Tully, who's my close friend and probably a mentor of the intellect. He was a great intellectual fisherman and Irish fisherman. And in his little house that was already condemned by the lumber company, we would meet every day, and we would listen to Ella Fitzgerald singing All My Life. And it had a potato sack over the speaker, I remember, just to kind of muffle the sound so it wouldn't be too raw coming, because he was very impoverished. And on the walls of that house, it was one of the old houses of this funny community, shacks. And the wallpaper was peeling, of course. So every day he would make new additions on a make-believe world with a heavy pen marker. He would make up names of nations and cities, and while we were listening to this music. So that's the...
Were you listening to it while you were filming?
Well, it was in my head.
In your head.
The sunshine, not sunshine, the color.
Because there's a moment just at the end, when you're panning up by the wire, and it momentarily hesitates in the pan for 3 notes, just so the camera rises while the music ends. This was just a coincidence, or because you were humming it in your head?
Je ne sais pas.
Okay. The other thing which is so amazing is the very instant that the roses leave the right-hand frame, you've panned it so that they're just at that moment entering the left-hand frame.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's like one of the most perfect moments of cinematic grace, I know.
Isn't it a miracle that we once in a while obey that something inner note that says, no, you can't quite do that yet. It's something here, back there, or there's something over there. And sometimes you even get the word, go do it. Sometimes they won't tell you.
But this inner note is precisely what the legends of Parsifal are about.
That's Parsifal.
Yeah, I mean, he is making all sorts of mistakes, and yet it's the inner voice that is telling him what to do.
And at the very end, by the way, the woman's voice in the opera says, she sings, if you haven't seen it yet, or you'll hear it, well, she sings out a long operatic note, and the word is Parsifal bleibe, stay. Just makes you too much.
Uh-huh. And do you see an affinity between?
But he doesn't stay, by the way. That's the whole thing.
Well, yeah, but it breaks off. We don't know.
But in the Parsifal,
In
the
Wagner.
whole scene about Parsifal is that he's not. It's not in the book, in the cards for him to stay with us here in time space. Even when love beckons, earthly love beckons, there's more. What more? What is it, Stendhal? I think that was a big thing with Stendhal, wasn't it?
I don't know what you're
Something
referring to
about
at the moment.
his whole thing, I always remember him asking, now I can't remember the exact wording, but what's more? What is there more? Of course, that's the human condition asked that question. What more is it? Is there more?
Well, that sounds almost precisely like your version of Quixote, too.
I suppose.
constantly wandering, constantly willing to be the fool, constantly mistaking things for the better.
Yes. So, we have a number of interesting visitors from various parts of the world of thought and time, space, and so on here with us today again. And we have one audience member who's a research person, and all things pertaining to
Cervantes.
Miguel Cervantes and
That would be
Yeah.
me.
Don
Yes, yeah.
Quixote.
I-
Sorry,
I will take the opportunity to take advantage of your mentioning.
Yeah, you do that.
He must, he has to
It's
ask.
April now, this month is the 400th anniversary of Cervantes' death.
Oh my goodness.
So, although probably no one else thought of it that way, I think of this screening of Quixote as a kind of also homage to the author.
Let it be so, yes, please. Yes.
Is someone watching our time? Do we know how much minutes?
We always have somebody on the time clock here.
How are we doing?
You're okay.
Okay. So it's 400th anniversary of Cervantes. Didn't he die at the same time as Shakespeare?
They died within a few days of each other, but traditionally the same date. England was on the Julian calendar still though, so it's actually not the same day.
Okay, we'll spoil sport.
It was the same year, spring of 1616.
Okay, so I'm being disabused of all my knowledge today. When you look back at Parsifal, All My Life, Quixote, this incredible work, I hope you think it was all worth it, all that suffering, all that poverty.
I'm most glad that you make that point. The suffering's incredible, but probably universal. But that's one of our windows in the universe, and it's, yeah, it's too much. And but is it? I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know. It's too much. Too much. It's way too much.
Now, if I understood it, when you first made Parsifal, you were thinking of a structure a little like Baillie, in which there'd be other things, you know, like one-reel films, like All My Life, shown on the side? Like the reels that are shown in Baillie?
No,
That wasn't true?
Don't think so.
I thought that was in the Scott McDonald interview.
For one thing, Parsifal was still an early endeavor of mine to
It's like
make,
your breakthrough
to make a
film.
movie, to make a film.
Yeah.
Then the guiding lights in the putting it together would have been nature herself. Where was I and what was really happening in real-time space? Just ordinary events of being at sea and on a fishing boat, and then being up in the mountains, waiting for the train to come up and announce itself, sleeping and with my tape recorder beside me on the ground.
You were
on
waiting for the
hillside,
sound
in
of the
woods.
train, you mean?
Yeah, waiting for the sound of the train, for which I had to return to a little mountain place where the spring that we see in the visuals, I could get the water and so on. And so I slept there and waited for the train to come up into the mountains and pass between California, up over the mountains and down again into Nevada and on its way wherever it was going. And I knew back in the Bay Area where I was living and working that I should have to return just for the sound at that point. And but those would be the guiding
You bring on something of interest, that is, at that time, in the early sixties, you seemed to be the filmmaker who was more than anyone else, claiming a vast landscape for yourself. You were claiming virtually the whole west of you know, Brackage had staked out a certain part of Colorado and practically owned all of it. Yeah, but you really were, you got in that car and you were staking out the whole west.
Mine in a Volkswagen now. I had this old Volkswagen. I had borrowed the style of living in that Volkswagen, the Beetle, from my philosophy professor, Dr. Andrew Bowman, who's now,
Where, at Stanford?
he was,
I mean, you were a student at
he was
Stanford, right?
I can't remember.
Oh,
He was near Stanford. But anyway, he was the first person I knew to live in a Volkswagen. He had one of the old double window German Army color Feldreihe, and he had a board very neatly designed to sit, and he took the seats out except for the pilot seat. And then his sleeping bag was neatly tucked under there with his books, and he could go anywhere, and he had a jug of water, and that's about it. So I emulated that style, and so when my traveling that you mentioned, everywhere and anywhere, I would come out here sometimes in the old Volkswagen.
but mainly around the west.
But you, yes, you make it in an heroic.
Yeah, you had you called it a Volkswagen, and we all thought it was Rocinante. You're Quixote
But it's interesting because we do have that theme before us tonight, and of heroes, and I was very concerned. Really, I remember now, literally concerned about heroic. Presence. I don't know quite the word.
And that's, we're gonna have to end it, but you actually went down to Selma, didn't you? In the course of making Quixote, didn't you actually leave the West to go to Selma, Alabama, when the events were occurring there,
Yeah.
when the Freedom March was going on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was that was genuine heroism.
Yeah.
National hero. Well, Bruce, I think they're telling us it's time that people want to see the films. It
Oh,
was
that's
great
right.
to be with you again.
I always forget that when folks come
They want to see a film, yeah.
film showings.
Yeah, they've seen enough of two old men, they want to see a film.
Well, let's see, can I think of something in the way of an adieu?
Like goodbye.
Never to see you again.
You'll see them again, come on.
Is that not heroic in itself?
We'll see. The films are heroic. You'll see them again. I mean, you've said this, I mean, for years you've been saying this. You've been saying
What,
it for more.
goodbye?
Yeah, you'll never see me again. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Is that all I get to say? I had so many lines. Oh, one line, let me give it to you. It came from my son Bob. We were, before the visit to New York this time, we were just driving along. Somehow the film Patton came up. And, it came up because he was recounting, as he often does, what I said when we were in Los Angeles or we were in New York or what. He said, Dad, when you were there, you said, and I never heard the like, but he has a whole book full of these. He said that you said, Dad, I love it. What were we addressing? What did I say? I love the being here with this, visiting with all the people and all that. Was that it?
I think it's like when we have something bad going on at the hotels.
Oh, beautiful. We always have a duel with the persona of the hotels where we stay. And
We're going to have a duel to end this, I think.
Well, this is the way it's been going. It has to go this way. 'Cause
They're telling me that they want to show the film.
they've got to wait. Okay, now. Okay, this will be as quick as possible. The last
You know,
story.
Quixote got tossed in a blanket for
This is the last story you'll hear from me. Okay,
centuries. Yes, let's go.
now where were we? Hotels. Oh yeah, and my response. Bob says, Dad, your response when I mentioned this to you about this this conflict at every hotel, one after the other, and so on and so on. You said, he replied, I love it, so. Which I was glad to hear that I might have said that. So then I said, it's just like the key line in the film Patton. He's surveying this panorama of smoking tanks that have had a major tank battle out in the field.
We might need them
And he's talking to his first lieutenant. He says, Phil, God help me, I love it so. So there, I leave that with you.